Hi there. Welcome to the Activated Asana podcast, where we look at all kinds of things related to health and yoga and well-being. Today, I have a wonderful guest that I'm really excited to spend some time with and share some time with and all kinds of discussion. This is Csilla, and she is somebody who's been practicing yoga with me for many years, and we've become quite good friends because we're such kindred spirits in terms of our deep belief in holistic healing and health and creating balanced, fruitful lives. So Csilla is a very interesting woman in and of herself. She's had quite the healing journey herself. She's explored yoga for many, many years. And currently she has her own path of becoming a life coach. And I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about that, Csilla, because I think it's really interesting work. She, like me, is a very fearless woman, if I may say so. And I think this is going to be reflected in the kind of life coaching that she does. She's really going to help people find their strength. So yeah, just describe that a little bit for us, Csilla.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me on this podcast. It's an honor to be here. You've played such a big role in my journey in understanding who I am in this body and how this body works. So I'm deeply grateful for that. I am a life coach who works with people who are looking to play a stronger role in their own healing. I do causal coaching, which is thought work and understanding the role of emotions in your body and how to process them for well-being, both emotionally and mentally, and better health as well. Because as we will probably chat about, is our body has its own ability to heal, and coaching like yoga taps into that. So thanks so much for having me here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. If there's one thing the world needs right now, it's to rediscover, reconnect with our ability to heal. And we all have, we've just been under so much stress. And I think people have, trauma from, the day we're born pretty much, and, recurring. And I've always believed that, we are capable to meet the challenges of our lives. That's what we're doing here. But it's our lifestyle to sort of de-equip us for that. And, I really feel like we need to rediscover our strength on so many levels. So I just love that you're going into this work, Csilla, because, again, I do see you as like such a strong woman, a woman who's always sought clarity and objectivity and, just really willing to look at things as they are, without all the veils and all the propaganda, maybe, of various kinds that just come at us from all corners. So let's start with just hearing about, I would imagine you had this tendency from birth probably, but there was probably some time in your life where you sort of entered the world of yoga. And like, what brought you to that? What were you seeking something, or was it sort of by accident?
Well, I had already been on a journey figuring out how to feel better. But what was interesting for me, how I got to yoga, was I broke my wrist, and it was broken for about 5 months before I actually had an x-ray done to say that the scaphoid, which is a tiny bone in the joint of your wrist, was broken. And the doctor had said to me that the scaphoid in particular has a hard time healing because there's blood supply only from one end of the bone. And more than likely, he said, the bone will not survive because the flow won't be maintainable, like for the healing process. Anyway, so I get this cast on my hand, and I'm not sure where this came from, but I had this idea that if I supported the flow of energy into the bone, then maybe it'll survive. So I signed up for a yoga class, and there I am in downward dog with my hand in this cast, and I'm just breathing all of my will and strength and love and energy into my hands in order to increase this flow. And in the class, I was so surprised how much I enjoyed being in a pose and feeling the energy run in my body. Warrior 1, 2, and 3. I remember being in these poses and feeling so grounded that I had never experienced that before. So that is where the love of yoga bloomed, as I wanted to heal my hand, and my bone healed, and I didn't have to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was
so
really.
you had the cast on for how long, and then you got it cut? You had it taken off?
I had the cast on 2 sets. The second time so it was 6 weeks, and then I had to do it again because it wasn't necessarily healed yet, but it wasn't going in the negative direction. So then he put a cast on again, but he made it really big and I couldn't use my fingers. So I actually felt a little trapped and I took the cast off and continued with yoga and supporting my wrist. I had a half cast done so that I could shower and things like that. So I had more mobility, but it was still secured. So I had 6 weeks and then another 6 weeks of cast, and then it healed.
Amazing. Yeah, I would love to do like a study with one group of people, like thinking those thoughts and another group of people, but we don't want to go around breaking wrists, I guess. But man, it's so interesting, like to see that kind of result. So from there, like, yeah, I know you've been practicing for a long time. Has it been a pretty consistent practice? Or were there times when you moved away from it and did other things for a while? And like, what would bring you back?
What would bring me back would be the desire. So if I did leave for a while, I would start getting migraines, and my body would tighten up, and then I would go to a yoga class and it would support just stretching into the tighter spots of my body, but it was very physical in my understanding at first. So I was more I was stronger or I had more flexibility than I had strength. And so I really enjoyed being in the pose, but getting in and out of it wasn't as supportive. So then I would feel sore after, but there was still something that was serving me where I was releasing energy as I was doing the movements. And so I started to crave more and more of it, thinking it was my way of supporting my body in the things that I was doing. And then I came to Ayurveda. This lady was speaking at a conference in St. Albert, and I signed up for the only class that was still available was pranayama. So that was very foreign to me. But then I got introduced to what breath work does, and what role the breath plays in your body. Then it was a landslide, full immersion into the understanding of how yoga and all of Ayurveda supports us as humans, as we are like the fullest expression of nature. So then always seeking balance. I started to understand that things weren't right or wrong with me. Like if I had a migraine, it wasn't that it was a problem per se, but stuck energy that was wanting to move. And then how was I to support it? Yoga was my easiest access for that. And it just continued to be the thing that I do to maintain this body to feel as good as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yoga is kind of, and actually, you're making it right now sound like yoga is the only physical thing you do, but I know like you do lots of things, right? Like you hike and you ski and all of that. So maybe yoga is more like your movement practice where you tune into your body, you're, checking in with your balance, is there like a harmonious vibe within this body?
Yeah.
and dealing with that. But then you're off the mat, right? You're doing all kinds of other activities. Like,
Yeah.
how has doing yoga affected, the other activities that you do? What's that like?
Well, I have another example of that. And now that I do activated asana with you, I ski. I ski instructed when I was younger, and it's the passion of my life to ski. As now I taught my kids to ski, and then I started to ski on my own because my kids got more independent. So we were skiing one time, for example, and I had freedom to ski as fast or as hard as I wanted to ski. And I was doing these shorter radius turns down this long slope, and I got going, and it just felt exhilarating. But I was using my large muscle groups, because what happened was I actually maxed out my body. Like, what happened was, I'm doing these turns and I went to slow down, but there was so much speed that it took all of like everything in me to stop. But what happened was, my muscles, my quads and hamstrings and calf actually locked up, and I ended up crunching down to just protect my knee, because I could see that that's where it was going to go out, and my leg locked. And so it took me about 15 minutes to release the lock, and I just had never experienced that before. This was a time where I was already taking active asana with you, and as I went back to yoga practice, and you were talking about the outside and inside lines, and then being aware of your fascia, I started to pay more attention to the cues in our class, as to feeling more intuitively the smaller or the more intricate parts of how our body works together. The following year, when I went skiing, I actually intentionally called upon all these parts of my body to ski, to support my skiing, not just the large muscle groups, moving the joints, but the lines that support its alignment. And my skiing was off the charts compared to what I was doing before. So it was really exciting to see.
So you had another opportunity to just go for it.
Sure did.
Yeah.
And I was
and it went a little better this time.
Yeah, a bit more control in that slow down part as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, this phenomenon you talk about, the muscles all locking up, that is a real thing. Like, there will be a chemical change in the muscles, and all of a sudden they do lock down. This happens especially in like a very anaerobic state, when you're going like full out. Yeah. So that's quite the thing to experience.
And
I think, like how you said this about how you kind of went back to the drawing board in your yoga practice and started integrating the body. Yeah. And now, like you say, you're not stressing just, the main movers. Your body is now working as a wholeness. And yeah, there's there's balance, among muscle groups, and your tissue was stronger too, right? Because by that time you were really practicing activated asana, and you were really like building your tissues. So yeah, that to me is a great result.
and I could easily share it with my kids. Like, Carmen sometimes comes to our class, and I just told her to be aware of those lines. And she said instantly she could tell a difference between how much pressure she felt in her knees, because lots of people complain about knees while they ski, for example. Mm-hmm. And just that turning of the activating the leg lines, it reduced the tension or the pressure that she was feeling on her knee. And she could adopt it just by paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love stories like that, where you could just, take what you're learning from the practice and apply it to something like that. Yeah. And especially something strenuous, because, you wouldn't even look at yoga and say, oh yeah, that those skills transfer to other things. And I think, they don't generally, unless you're practicing in a certain way that does give you transferable skills, or, just movement skills in general. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, like what are the things like that draw you to practice these days? Like, you have your kids are teenagers, or are they both in high school now?
Junior high and high school.
Yeah. So you've got lots of years of family life ahead of you, and probably all kinds of adventures
Yeah.
in skiing and hiking and traveling and stuff like that. Like, how do you want your yoga practice to support you?
Now my yoga practice has evolved to supporting me on. So, one, yes, I do have to maintain my ability to keep up, because now even my son, who's in junior high, skis faster and harder, or he taught me pickleball this summer. And for me to play pickleball or keep up with him, I do have to maintain my ability to not just strength, but to respond quickly in order to do these kinds of sports. So I do find that that is what I'm working on when I'm in a yoga practice on the physical level. For me, it has evolved into almost like a meditation practice where I am working on myself mentally, emotionally, and physically in class. The activations I can see are lighting up. When we hold a pose, for example, I can see that the activation is communicating with all parts of my body to find its internal strength. I also find that when we go into a pose and we don't, like, where I don't go past my point of where I can maintain strength, but there is resistance. When I breathe into those areas, I can see that I'm actually releasing energy that is stored in my body. And from a coaching perspective, I understand that that energy is there because of what we carry in our lives. You had mentioned trauma starting from childhood. When we have thoughts, it creates emotions, and some of those emotions we don't allow through our bodies. And so we end up storing them. And it's like a backlog that is building up in our bodies. And then they get triggered when certain events happen. And then we wonder why it's happening. But it's because we carry sensitivities to that kind of frequency. But in a yoga practice, if I go in, I can feel that resistance that exists in my muscle tissue, or it's mostly in my muscle tissue, where I would then, or fascia lines, where I would then breathe into it. And I have a way of releasing that tension without having to do therapy. It helps me manage. And so on a surface level, you would say it helps me manage stress. I used to have to go to a chiropractor to really work the deep tissue work in my neck. If I maintain my yoga practice even once a week in your class, for example, I don't get my migraines. I used to have migraines that were severe, debilitating migraines at least once a month. And I haven't had them for years.
Oh, wow.
When it
That's just so
comes,
wonderful.
I know it's just the tension in my body. And so I now have the ability to breathe into that space and hold space for it. I have the awareness of how to release it. And instead of resisting it by tightening up, adding to the headache, I know I can breathe into it. And that all comes from my practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one thing I really wanted to talk to you about because, I've sort of made a bit of a name for myself in terms of I'm like the anatomy yoga trainer, right? I'm always talking about anatomy and physiology and the fascia, and it all seems very physical and tangible, and maybe thinking that it sort of remains on that level. But I do get a lot of feedback from the students, and I experience my way of practicing this way as well, is that it really pulls me into quite I hate to use the word deep all the time because I feel like it's overused in yoga. What does it even mean? But, it does. Yeah, it brings me into like a very immediate I am experience. and the activations are a really big part of it's like the more I go into an activation, the more I feel like I'm peeling back veils of sort of illusion and whatnot. I'm getting closer and closer to the core of I am. That's sort of how I'm experiencing it in the moment. And I know at least at first, and I think different people can take it to different levels, but at least at first, like immediately, activating the fascial lines will keep you present within your body, right? Because you're not sort of going into a position and letting go. And then the mind is, drifting around, because you actually have to stay quite present just to do the activation and then maintain and follow the pathway that you're feeling in your body and all of that. It really keeps you in your body, which is where you're going to meet all of these energies and whatnot that come up, perhaps to challenge you, but also perhaps to just remind you of where you've been and where you're going, and that kind of thing. I don't know how you would experience sort of describe your experience with it, but I want to hear what you have to say about the sort of the non-physical that is sort of caused by the physical experience that you're having, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I've never considered interpreting what you're saying in a different way, because I've always, what you say, especially in class, resonates so deeply with me. But from a coaching perspective, I could actually show you that what happens is the way when you do yoga and you are focused, as you keep calling our attention back to what we're doing, and you cue even the breath in every pose, where it goes in, where it comes out. In coaching, when I do deep work, which is again the same word that you were saying is overused, but what happens when we do deep work in anything is we're touching on where our nervous system goes into fight or flight. But if we maintain a slow, deep breath, our mind is suspended from deciding it's a problem when we feel the extreme tension. And so by maintaining in coaching, as well as in my yoga practice, I just saw this parallel, but by maintaining breath, we keep the mind out of fight or flight, out of deciding it's a problem and shutting down access. And so this way, through coaching or through the yoga practice, we start to put our finger on tensions that live below our nervous system. And by breathing into it and holding it a pose or activating, we are communicating energy, because energy has information and power as it runs. And when we hold a pose and our entire body is engaged and present, then the same information is being transmitted to every part of your body. So it puts it in alignment, and it also supports whatever is being released, that now the entire container, the entire body is processing what's happening instead of that tiny space of where it's jammed. And so this is where the release happens, is that that tiny space that has been shelled in order to maintain and not explode for you is now supported in allowing the flow of energy by using the entire container of the body to process it. And so this is how, but the key is breath and the cues in order to keep our mind engaged. And this is why I call it my meditative practice, because every time I can come back to my intention, and that intention gives me so much strength to hold the poses as we're holding them, and I can feel the resistance releasing in my body.
Mm-hmm. This is such a voyage of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Because we can, our mind, our mind is also just doing its best to serve us, but it will limit us, right? Because, the nervous system's impulse is to keep us safe and alive. It doesn't want us falling over or hurting ourselves or whatever, but it can really limit your experience, it can kind of shut things down. And the mind is like that too. It will make you doubt yourself,
Yeah.
and doubt your ability to, well, I mean, we see this all the time in the body, doubt your ability to do something physical. Like I can't name how many times I had a discovery in a yoga practice of doing something I had never done before and did not know I could do, but all of a sudden I'm doing it, and that might be because I'm taking somebody's class and they're just cueing into this posture, or I'm exploring in my own self practice, well, what if I try this, or what if I move like this, and all of a sudden you're in a new place where that you've never experienced before. So just not sort of not listening to the limiting thoughts of the mind and just going with the flow that you feel in your body, and this invitation to go to somewhere new. You're just opening up those channels. And when you're dealing with the psyche, I suppose, is kind of what your area is. It's kind of the same, isn't it? Your body, your psyche, mental, emotional aspect of you is trying to sequester trauma, so, yeah, you're not really having to deal with it. We'll just store it over here for a while. Maybe one day you'll be ready. But you're just,
That's right.
Because you're in the flow, you're going with the flow, you perhaps have the encouragement of a coach and some guidance, whatever. You just decide, well, I'm just going to go into this and just see what happens. And oftentimes it's not nearly as bad as you think, or there's maybe less analytical stuff that needs to be done, right?
I have two exact examples of this in class, where you had once said, we were going into a pose and you said, pause, because your mind doesn't know you can do this. And it just needs to develop the pathway in order to do it. And we did. It was something about lifting leg and hand on the same side of our bodies and to hold that balance. And then a second one was just recently, we keep doing the hamstring test.
Oh yes, the hamstring strength test.
Where
That's me. I do an actual orthopedic test in the middle of a yoga class.
Where every time I'm in the start of that pose, I am convinced that there is no possible way I can lift my backside off the ground. And then I just surrender to, oh, it's not the mind doing it, it's the body, and I trust it. And all of a sudden it lifts. And I suspend my doubt in myself, and my entire body communicates and is able to do it. So I just find it so fascinating how it is the practice of awareness that we have so much strength and intention already present as to how to hold space for tapping into that, instead of believing the limiting thoughts that we have.
There is just so much that we just need a prod to unlock these capacities within ourselves. That is one of the things that excites me the most, is just like, how can I crack this open? How can I help people access the strength that they always have, they already have, how can we help them like pull that together, pull the body together, or like remember, the arms and legs, how can we pull them back into the body so you actually have the use of them, the full use of them. And the full capacity that you actually are designed to have, and you actually have right now, but you just don't know, either because you haven't been taught how to use your body, or, your mind is in doubt about it, and it's probably a bit of both. Frankly.
And you just use the word remember, which means taking the members of your body and pulling it together. And you also said that the strength is already there. And that's the same thing in life coaching, is that I call it reimagine, because we use our own awareness to connect to what we know is meant for us. Like we find our own internal wisdom, and it's clearing the blocks that are thoughts that are limiting in coaching. And the same thing then happens in yoga, is we're clearing the blocks of thoughts that we believe in our muscles that we don't have access to, and then we do, right? Remember how we work.
Yeah. And it's funny. It almost seems like cheating sometimes because if you go through a certain like series of preparation poses and awareness practices, if you do that, then you'll often be able to do something that if you just started cold, you couldn't do. But because you do these certain preparatory postures and techniques, and I do this in my class all the time. So, I often tell people that I'm actually like preparing you guys. So if you go take somebody else's class, you'll be, you're gonna crush it. because like I'm very systematic about priming the fascia, right? Just so it awakens the fascia, so it's more proprioceptively sensitive. So now you know where you are in space, and I use a lot of active inhibition, right? So you contract or activate very strongly in a certain direction, so that now when I want to take you to the next step, it's going to feel easy. So there's all kinds of things you can do, and I'm sure like when you're coaching people, there's probably things you do to set them up so that they're ready, for that confluence of energies that they're going to have to face together, right? There's like some kind of priming probably that happens. And I mean, one of them would be belief, right? Just belief that you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, that's exactly it. That's where it starts, is having the thought is where it becomes part of it's where the energy is created of having an emotion, which is the fuel that takes you into anything you're willing to do. But even on a simpler term, when someone has a goal, when we think about the goal, we get overwhelmed and we potentially would shut ourselves down. We would freeze or we would run from it, which is fight or flight. But if you can focus on one step at a time, you have access to having that much trust or that much belief into the first step, even if your belief is not fully present for the end goal, but having the belief to take the first step and then the next step. And these are skills, these are intellectual skills that sometimes are done for us while we're going in school. And then unless you intuitively picked it up, it's something if you learn as an adult, you become unstoppable because you will continue to create what you want in life. But in order to get there, there's so many ways that we trick ourselves out of it.
So what's the skill, Csilla? Is it the skill is to take like small manageable steps? Is that what it is? Like to map that out? Like how do you think about that?
It's a two-way thing, but it's because you're wanting to have the goal, but you're also wanting to focus on the initial step. What I first teach people how to do is to feel, to have a sense of what, and feeling has been understood so disconnectedly, because when we're kids and we're angry, we're told not to be angry. We're also told that what we do affects how someone else feels. Like when a parent says, don't do that or else I'll be mad. And so we internalize these beliefs that have taken our power away. And so we understand that having a negative emotion is something bad. And so my first step usually with people is to understand that we are meant to feel positive and negative emotions. And the more we can lean into experiencing negative emotions, the more we have the capacity to experience positive ones. Because we are, like, back to my original where I said life, or that we are nature and nature is balance. And so it's funny because I can tie it back to your yoga practice too as well, because sometimes like creating the tension creates the release, allows for the release. Without creating the tension, you don't have access to the release. And so
That's
it's
right.
the same with negative and positive emotions. And then to understand that our body is our instrument. And I've heard this in
Mhm.
class as well, but that when we experience negative emotions, it's not meant to harm us, but it is an indicator of when some thoughts, like there's some negative, when we experience something that hurts in our bodies, it's because that thought is not in alignment with who we are. And so use it as a barometer
Mm.
instead of something as the end result that you're good or bad. We take a step back and just start using it as a barometer to see if this is meant for you in a way that you're going to expand, or is it causing you to contract?
I love that. That's beautiful. That I can feel, right? I think people can really, feeling is so key to understanding ourselves, like I feel like the body is, it is a truth teller, but we just ignore it, right? Or we dumb it down, or, we mask
Or we judge
what
it.
it's doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely relate what you're saying to the practice as well, because it's like tensioning the fascial lines just creates flow. And even on I mean, there's a sensation and a vibration to it. And like I've been delving into lately, it improves electron flow through the waters and the fibers of the fascial lines that we're tensioning. And so this is, the tension is enabling things to move. So you can think of it as a release, but it's like the movement, the conduction of energy through the body, and perhaps out, right? Like if that's what it means, it's moving through,
Yeah.
and not getting held up anywhere, or like you say, that sense of contraction, right? And the body, like the way the body is honest with us is it talks to us via sensation. So if we're able to, like, it, I think this is something that you adapt to, right? The more you and by adapt, I mean you can get better at, you become better and better and more subtly sensitive to the sensation. So you can ask your body a question like, is this true for me? And your body you'll feel something somewhere in your body.
Yeah.
And, that is a gut feeling, that we feel, all right. We feel things. I mean, it's part of our language, to have a gut feeling, or, oh, my heart, we feel things in our body that resonate, it's because of resonance. Is this true or not true? Does this make me feel like I want to disappear, or does this make me feel like expansive, and I feel like, we can enhance that ability and experience in the yoga practice as well, through movement and breath and through activation. And I feel like we are really, like, even myself, like the more, the years of practice now, I'm discovering new levels of that. Absolutely. Because, like, um, yeah, I just feel like we're constantly being challenged with new things, and having to decide. And I don't think this is a bad thing. It's just, this is what we're experiencing right now, is having to decide, what's best for us, because we're given so many opportunities to be distracted. And, how do we come back home to ourselves? What are our ways of doing that? And we all need, a path that we can hop onto and go, I know this brings me back to myself. This path brings me back to myself. And for some people, they like to sit still and meditate. For some people, they like to do a moving meditation, which is more how I would describe the way we're practicing. But it brings you back, and then, you're breathing and feeling again. And yeah, it's like the sweet spot in my life, where I really, that's where I can know what I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that it's a way to understand and to make decisions, or have a gut feeling. And that is so key. I will reiterate exactly what you were just saying, but it is so key to find our way, because the world is more and more distractive, and it causes a disconnection. And so any practice that allows energy to flow and helps with connection is in support of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So developing the skill to use your sensations, whether it's through yoga practice or coaching, helps you come home. And you were saying, like, the I am experience,
Mm-hmm.
you know, letting go of attachments that block the way.
Yeah.
You know,
And I feel like since I started teaching yoga, which was like about 2009, and coming from other movement practices that I had been teaching, and teaching anatomy and physiology and all of those different things, I feel like the message became almost cliche, like, oh, you can be anything you want or do anything you set your mind to, and all of that. And at the same time, it seemed like the reality of our life was just that it was getting more and more complicated. Our attention was just getting more and more split, and more and more distraction coming in, so that those things might still be true. You can be anything you want, and you can attain anything or do anything, but it just like there was a jungle growing up between you and that. And there's I think maybe we're going to change that, like in the next decades. I don't know, maybe we're going to change that. We're going to make things simple again. But in the meantime, things are not simple right now. And I do think we need these paths that we've created for ourselves to get back to that place where we can know what we know, and we can just be with ourselves and enjoy our own company and refresh ourselves, if you will, so that we're sort of as much as we can be. This is a dumb way to say it maybe, but sort of like up to date within ourselves, like we're dealing with our things, and yeah, and you may not feel 100% all the time, and you may not feel like you are on target for your goals and things like that, but you're in general facing forward. We have, as humans, a very strong need to be oriented toward where we want to go. That's very strong within us. And sometimes we're not quite there, but the more tools we have to restore that sense of connection, that sense of purpose and focus and everything, then the best, that I think is just the healthy place to be, and then you can realize your goals and your dreams, etc. Those things require a path, and a very purposeful one too. And in order to stay on the path, we need tools, to bring us back to it, because otherwise, you're just going to keep scrolling and swiping, and, what I mean? And I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration maybe, but I mean, my goodness, there's so many calls upon our attention. And, when you're raising a family and you're looking after other people and, organizing their lives and everything too, it's not you wasting time on social media or something. It's you actually doing very purposeful work in your family life as well, right? So, I think, again, like, to steer that ship, you have to be able to retain your true north, right? And keep yourself oriented forward. So beautiful that you've like made such good use of these tools throughout your life.
Yeah, I do believe, in an abundant universe, and all these tensions that appear in our lives is actually our roadmap to going back home. So it's being present with what comes up that is hard or challenging, that is your obstacle. But then as you spend time with it, using these skills of awareness of yoga or of coaching, that you can turn those obstacles into the strategies that then become part of you in your evolution
Hmm.
in your lifetime.
Yeah, that so resonates with me because, like I feel like we came here to grow, we came here to be challenged. And again, being the anatomy nerd that I am, I realize the necessity, right, of a stimulus, we'll just call it, we need some kind of prod, or
Yeah.
we get weaker, right? Like in the body, you have to use your body or you lose your capacity. You have to like do things that require strength so that you can stay strong, right? You don't get stronger by resting.
That's right.
That's just not how it works. And so I know that we need these difficult things to work through so that we can evolve, right? So we can unlock other aspects of ourselves that we didn't even know were there. That I feel is absolutely necessary. But we can definitely spiral.
Yeah.
At times, like if we're tired or we're sort of we can easily get overwrought or whatever. But again, that's why we need to like bring ourselves back into some kind of like just so we can regain that perspective of like, okay, yeah, I'm able to do hard things. I've done lots of hard things, and I'm going to be able to manage this too, and just getting back to ourselves so we can be who we are. It's yeah, I'm just, yeah, that I think is just such a key message for humanity right now. It's just getting back to realizing that we are these incredible spiritual expansive beings, and that we can do hard things, and we can grow and change and expand and learn. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still do that.
And that the wisdom and the strength to do so is on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And isn't that funny how it is often like sort of our knee-jerk reaction to look for something outside of ourselves to make us feel stronger or make us feel whatever we think we're lacking, And oh boy, that is just that is the thing that we do. But when you can go inside, the self-discovery is really worth it.
Agreed. Yeah. So good that this is how we get to spend our times and our days.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, are anything you want to tell me about like what you're up to? Like, I know that you've been kind of doing a fair bit of training and going to inspirational type of meetings and things like that. And I mean, just in the field that you're in, which is really growing a lot. I think there's a great need for it right now. Yeah. What are the things in that field that are really getting you excited about these days?
What I'm starting to, who I'm starting to work with are people who where the disconnect. So I've always seen that life has presented lessons along my path in life. And I would notice that I would get a similar lesson over and over again. And I would wonder what I didn't learn the time before in order for this lesson to appear again. So I've always been aware of that. Where this is so exciting for me is it's probably, I wasn't well when I was younger, and my journey as to how I got here really was looking for ways to heal my body, then understood that the healing comes through the body and your mental and emotional well-being is part of it. And now I can see how those lessons that people see on the outside sometimes manifest in our bodies. And we currently live in a society that truly believes that some things that are in our bodies are bad or wrong. But what I want to get out into the world is that back to our natural healing ability, those problems appear because they are actually for us to process in order to get to better health, better connection. I have watched several times things manifest in my body that showed up as problems. And it's through understanding why they're there that I have come to the next level of understanding of myself. And so I love to work with people who already have had ailments in their bodies, because they're potentially there's a stronger desire for them to heal through their body. And so opening up their awareness to what their emotions, for example, are doing in their bodies gives them direct tools to get better. And so it's more the autoimmune, and it's like we're reflecting our lessons and we're internalizing it. And I like working with people who want to look at that and heal through that I'm discovering now. And it's working with the nervous system and how those stories usually lie underneath, that they come in from childhood, and then how to process that, but not trigger the nervous system, hence the breathing, even in yoga. So
yeah,
it's learning to work with the whole. It's skills to be able to master the experience that you are given in this life.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's
I like it too. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. It's like I love that, because the things you encounter, whether that's in your body or in your life circumstances or whatever, are there to prepare you for your life's purpose, right?
That's
it's
right.
like, yeah, you came here to do something, and it's all preparation. Wow. Wouldn't we have like such a different outlook if we thought of it that way? We're always resisting, like, oh, I'm doing it wrong if I'm having this struggle. That's kind of how it is. Or and it's the very same in the body too. We see symptoms that we have as some kind of problem, but symptoms are always your body attempting to go through a healing process, or to alert you about something, which pain is often there to alert you. It's a signal, and we just want to wipe it out. We don't want to actually look at it or feel into it and discover what it's all about,
Or the symptom is part of the healing process, which you have
Yes.
in yoga as well, where it's like the inflammation is saying, I am ready to be seen. I am ready to be resolved, or you are ready to accept this part and understand this part of you. It's showing up, actually. And if we saw it that way, instead of something that needs to be calmed or dismissed, we would be taking that, we would be leveling up. We would be taking that next step into within our own journey, within our own path of where we're being guided to go.
Yes. It's like over here.
Yeah.
This is the part that you need. This is your next step right here. Deal with this. I mean, my goodness, it's pretty, like, honestly, I love listening to lectures on German New Medicine. And one of the terms that they use is biological. So this symptom is biological. It makes sense in the body because of the, like, it would be like a trauma, conflict, or something that occurred. It would affect this tissue because it's just related to this germ layer and all that. It's a little bit complicated to just explain right now, but they use this term biological, and it's like it has to do with the psyche. Like, so the psyche is playing out some pattern in the body, a program. And same thing, like, when you're trying to get stronger, develop balance, or better proprioception in your yoga practice, it's the same thing. It's just like, does this make sense in your body? Because I think a lot of people misunderstand the purpose of the practice. They don't understand that the thing that they're doing is going to get them a result. And so, like, there is a logical connection between what you're doing in your body and the kind of result you're going to get. And this whole, like, thing about, like, the psyche playing out in the physical tissue in a biological way, like a logical way. There's a logic to it. Like, I mean, I love how, like, nature is actually logical, which is why we can connect to it. It makes sense.
Yeah. We can talk forever on this because I have another word like that. My favorite one, because I work with disease, but if you looked at the word dis-ease, it's basically saying there's a disconnection with the ease in your body. It's not saying remove it. It's saying the ease is not present because it's being interrupted. There's so many words like that.
Well, that just ties back to the balance idea, right? Because if things are in balance, there's ease. When they're not in balance, now it's like, yeah, there's no ease there. It's so much like headstand. So like awesome. in supported headstand, once you get into proper supported headstand, now you can kind of relax.
Yes.
But if you're a little bit out of balance, you have to work like mad. It's like so much work to be in that slightly unbalanced position. Oh, it's exhausting. But as soon as you find the balance point, then it's like, oh, okay. So it's like that, you're right. It's like dis-ease. Like if you're struggling and resisting and whatever, like, okay, something ain't right.
Yeah, that's right. So good.
Yeah, I love playing with words, actually. It's looking into the roots of words and whatnot. That's a lot of fun too. But maybe that's a conversation for another day.
I'm trying to calm my mind to focus back on this call. It's gone everywhere.
Yeah, that's a blast. Okay, well, it's always so much fun talking to you, Csilla. And, you guys think that, I don't know what you all think about our conversation, but Csilla and I will hang out after yoga class for, it seems like hours, but we just go from one subject to another. There's always so many juicy things we can talk about. But I really appreciate, the things that you've shared with me, like as you've continued to practice with me. And, you've really supported my teaching and, coming to my classes through thick and thin over the last few years. And and then just sharing, your wins with me. You've really taken on the practice. You've really applied my cues and my method and whatnot. And I love hearing the stories about how that's played out in your life and how useful it's been for you. And then, it's been fun for me to watch you enter into this kind of new phase of coaching in your life, because I think you have a natural aptitude, but you've also learned so many great tools and express yourself so well. So I really, really appreciate that. It's always fun to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me on this call. And I do love my classes. I continuously feel supported being in a group of people that do the practice together. There's something to that. And then the words that come out of you, I've said many, many times, you need to record them because they are so intuitively, they speak to my soul every week. So thank you so much for doing that part too. So
yeah, well, that's my pleasure. And that's why I teach to open up those channels. So awesome. All right. Well, bless you. And thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in class. Is there anything you want to point people to, like a website, or if people wanted to be in touch with you for coaching?
Yeah, on my website, you can even sign up for a free class, or free session, just to see what it's like. And it's my first name, last name. I do spell my name different. It's CSILLA and then BFEE.com. So
ChillaFee.com.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Csilla.
Bye.
Hi there, Denise here. I hope you enjoyed that discussion. And if so, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can see the next one. And hey, if you're interested in learning more about what I do, I invite you to my free community called the Yoga Teachers Lounge. You can join that in the link below. And hey, if you want to work more closely with me and become an activated Asana teacher, then head over to my website and fill out an application. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye for now, everyone.